Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video, Thomas and I are going to take you through the steps of a production blacksmithing shop. So the project that we have on the go today is we're making up a whole bunch of product for a upcoming craft fair at the Presque Isle Lighthouse in Presque Isle, Michigan. So I hope to be able to sell a whole bunch of good stuff there. Thomas and I do both, and I hope to be able to do a good demonstration for the public and show what a blacksmith is and what a blacksmith does. I think it's important for everybody out there to do some public demonstrations and shows at least once in your blacksmithing career. So stick around for the rest of the video. We have a lot to go over, a lot to cover, and let's get into it. Okay, tip number one on production work. Prep work. Never underestimate the importance of layout and prep work of your pieces before you get started for the day. As you can see, I have a pile of stuff that'll be going. Yes, these are all plasma cut blanks, but if you're making something from scratch, say you're making something from, you're gonna make a bunch of little icicles from 3/8 inch square bar stock. Okay, well, have your stuff prepped, cut to size, dressed, ready to go and get in the forge. Don't have a whole bunch of stuff that's all gnarly and that's going to fight you along the process. Okay, tip number two about production work and how you can get better at it. Not everything needs to be done hot. In fact, sometimes hot work on low dollar items ends up costing you more than you might think. So let's say you're running a gas forge. If you're running a gas forge, you're running a coal forge, you're running an induction forge, any type of thing where you are creating heat, you are burning energy, and so therefore you're burning the moolah at the same time. You're burning dollars, okay? So it's not always just about getting superior tooling. Sometimes it's about thinking about your process. What can you do cold? What can you do hot? In the case of this, we've got a lighthouse hooks that Thomas is working on right now, and he's doing all of this cold. Now we will do the finish work on these hot. So we'll heat them up and we'll finish them off hot, but we're doing it cold first. And there's a real big reason for that, because we're not gonna be selling these hooks for an arm and a leg. We're not gonna sell them for 60 bucks a hook or $100 a hook, right? So we need to find a way of cutting costs of time. Also, fuel. I don't want to be burning a gas forge like crazy. On these that I can do cold, I want to save my gas and my fuel expenditures for the month on the things that I have to produce with hot work. So give that a think next time that you're working on some production work. Next tip that I have for you on production work is think about the design that you're going to offer and compare it to what price you are going to be charging for this design. So in this case, as you can see, we start off with a very simple blank. Now this has been tumbled and then cleaned up, and now we're forging it out cold. We had a couple different options that we could take and work with this to make this look like an anchor. One way that Thomas originally drew up a design for this was for this portion here for us to make some lines come up to create that kind of spade looking shape for the flues of the anchor, right? And I did a little quick test piece and found out that little line, that extra line, was going to cost some time, and it didn't really add that much to the aesthetic of the piece. Again, this is going to be on a hook, and you're going to be viewing this thing from about 4 foot away. So really the outside profile is what we're after to give the impression of an anchor. All the rest of the stuff is just noise. So what I opted for instead was to take and create just the notches for the bar and then texture the anchor itself and call it simple as that. Not only does that save us 4 chisel marks, which take 4 times longer to make, but it still got us the same result in the least amount of time possible. Now, consequently, we have the lighthouse over here, right? So you have the lighthouse that Thomas is working on. And we have a whole bunch of other designs that we're going to be taking with us. The lighthouse that you see Thomas working on here, it's a little bit more complex with chisel lines. So I made 3 hooks cold to the time that it took Thomas to make 1. So that's just something to think about, right? When you're starting with just 2 blanks, 2 blank shapes or 2, basic bar stock, and you're deciding what type of twists you might want to make, think about the time that it's going to take you per item or per step of the process, and that will help you keep your cost of time down and your profit margins high. Okay, one of the next things that you need to think about and consider when you're talking about production blacksmithing and trying to make sales where you're moving large quantities of material or large quantities of product, if you will, is tooling. Tooling is an important consideration, but it is definitely not the only consideration. One thing that I would like to spin a different curve on tooling for a second, because most of the time when we talk about tooling, we talk about how tooling will help us be more efficient. It will help us get a job done more quicker. It will make things a little easier. It will extend our forging capabilities or our time to be able to be out in the blacksmith shop. It will help in all those areas. But I want to throw a little different spin on that for you guys out there that may only have garage setups, or maybe you don't have a bunch of fancy or expensive equipment or tooling. You need to think about the cost of your space. There's been a lot of blacksmith shops that have started and failed because they bought a 12,000 square foot building and they put, $250,000 worth of equipment in it and then couldn't pay the rent or keep the lights on in the dry times, and therefore they had to sell off all that fancy equipment, and now they're smithing in their backyard still. So don't think for a second that you need a gigantic space. Gigantic spaces cost money. They cost money in upkeep, they cost higher money in rent, and they will ultimately cost more money in everything from heating to cooling to you name it, okay? Likewise, equipment in that shop. Every piece of equipment that you put on the power grid is going to zing your meter. So an induction forge may look like a real great plan, but you better have a high enough dollar item going into that induction forge to pay that electrical meter. Likewise, whether you're using coal, coke, gas, doesn't matter, heating torch, you have to calculate those costs while you're making a product of what you want to use. It's handiness for time, it's labor saving comparatively to its cost. There's a lot of labor saving items that cost a lot of money to run, and so therefore there's only projects that we take to those labor saving items when it is a high enough product, it's a high enough profit margin to do so. So that's something to think about, and I don't think that gets talked about enough in a blacksmith shop. This video has been sponsored by blacksmithsupply.com. Be sure to check out blacksmithsupply.com, link in the video description for all your forging needs. Now back to the video. So pricing that production work, that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do. But it's actually, the reason why it's a difficult thing is because it's an emotional process versus just a numbers game, because we are humans and we're not computers. So my suggestion is that you try to be as analytical as possible about it. You try to be as removed emotionally from the process of pricing your work. If you don't like the price of an item, you either need to get rid of it, or you need to take and charge more, or you need to find a way of going faster or being more efficient at that particular item if you want to continue. Those are some considerations that I think that are very important and very valid that you need to consider. If you go back to way back in the playlist series, on my Business of Blacksmithing playlist series that I originally started on YouTube, I had a video called The Rule of 33. I'll have Jessica link that up down in the description down below. Basically, it states, in short, is that you bring home roughly a third. About a third of your work comes out as profit for you to either reinvest in the business or live on. And then 2/3 of whatever that value of that item is goes to basically just the running of the business. So since that's a very simple equation, it should be fairly easy to say, okay, I'm making a $10 item. How long till I make $100, right? Well, if you make a $10 item, $3.33 of it is going to go back towards materials. $3.33 of it is going to go back to all your other consumables and taxes and business related things like that. And then $3.33 of it is going to take income to you, yourself, right, to either reinvest in the business or otherwise. So say if you want to make $300 at a show, you know that you're going to have to sell at least 100 hooks or blanks or bowls or whatever you're doing, you know, whatever that ornaments, stake turners, flippers, whatever, at $10 a piece. So that might tell you right there that maybe I shouldn't charge $10, maybe I should charge $20. That's still 50 items. That's a lot of product to move at a given show. So you might have to bump that up a little bit. Now all of a sudden you're like, well, this is a hook. No one's going to pay $40 for this thing. So then you have to think about your time. How many of these can I make to within an hour to end up making my hourly rate? Say you want to make at least $20 an hour. That's what you want to have as bring home, right? Well, then you need to be able to make enough product. It's a simple math game. You need to be able to make enough product at a price point where it will sell, but where it doesn't hamstring you, where you're getting ate up with all of the business, you know, all the business consumables and things like that. So that's a very simple, watered down, you know, quick explanation. You know, they always say don't do math on camera. I think I even said $33. I'll have to watch it on the replay and correct it if I did when I was saying $3.33. So at that rate, right, say if you did $10, or let's just call it $15 for easier math. So you get $5 of that $15. So you have to sell a lot of $15 hooks. A lot of $15 hooks to get up to that $20 an hour pay rate. So to get up to that, let's do some real quick math on that, right? Say 5 times 4, right? 5 times 4 is 20. Yeah. So at 5 times 4, you have to make at least 4 hooks at $15 to get to your $20 an hour. That's what it's going to take. So you need to be able to make and cram out those 4 hooks in an hour. Now, if they're a $30 hook, well, okay, now it's a $30 hook. You might get a little bit better. You can put a little more time into them. And so therefore, you know, maybe you get those done in 2 hours, but that's the rate that you have to look at. So when you're factoring in your tooling, when you're factoring in the type of project you're doing, when you factor in rather how fancy you're going to get with it, all that comes into play in the long run. Now, some of this can feel pretty overwhelming if you're just getting started. But trust me, these are things that you have to learn a little bit over time. They're not just something that you jump right into and you instantly know all these things and you're going to do it the best. And you're always going to be the, you know, the greatest marketer, the greatest salesperson. You're always going to have just high pay. That's just not going to happen. You have to make some mistakes. You have to, you know, go through a whole month where you've worked, you've put out a ton of product, and you realize, man, I didn't make anything this month. What happened? And then go back through with a fine-tooth comb. Oh, well, you know, I charged $8 a hook, but my materials cost me, you know, $7.50. Oops, I won't be making that mistake again, right? I have made, in my decade-plus long business, I have made a boatload of mistakes along the way, and it is okay for you to make a boatload of mistakes along the way as well. That's how we learn, and that's how we get better at our craft. That's how we get better at our businesses. That's how we get better at life in general. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you to channel members who make this content possible. God bless each and every last one of you out there. We'll catch you on the next one.